What's up, Joe Famous? Nice name. I hope y'all can hear me okay. Who else do we have in the chat? Sam M, Zachary White, Beatrice, what's going on? A Myers. Axel Mercia. I was actually trying to avoid even commenting on Anna's nonsensical claim. I was really trying to avoid even bringing it up because I just felt like it was like just another desperate attempt by Anna to remain relevant as TYT fades into the darkness, fades into the black, as they've clearly been doing over the last couple of years. And basically, this was her last attempt to try and ride that Tulsi wave, considering it's not like TYT is going to be covering her. So they're trying to get as much, as many views as possible while trying to ride that Tulsi wave. But you know, we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna give my objective analysis on this situation. So please share this. Aloha, Charmaine. Aloha, Shaka. Devin Best. Scripts to Clips, what's going on? Sumerian Hero. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good day from Australia. Nice. What's going on, Lucas? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That last no filter was unhinged. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, I feel like most people watch David Pakman to get a good laugh. A good laugh now, because he's just he's like so unhinged at this point. He makes so little sense that it's good to see someone who is, you know, kind of constantly, you know, intellectually masturbates himself. And he swears he's so logical, and everyone else who doesn't see eye to eye with him, well, we just don't get it. You know, the facts and stuff like that, that's irrelevant to David because he's an intellectual. So we'll give it about one more minute and then we'll get started. Thank you very much, Nicolas. You know, I try to bring some truth to the progressive movement, because I feel like for the fear and the heating of alliances that people have with each other, that they will not only ignore some of the truth, you know, or ignore some of the clear issues that some of these people like Anna Kasparian have, but they'll do like what David did and elevate Anna. And we're going to talk about some other people, because everybody wants to talk about my situation, but now nobody wants to question or, you know, talk to me by name, tag me by name. So I figured, you know what, fuck it, I'll do it. I don't care. This is what we're going to do. 1 second. Yeah, hey, David numbers keep doing like they have been doing. He might be looking for a new job at TYT, because for those type of people, YouTube by itself doesn't really pay the bills. Well, it doesn't really pay the bills for anybody, but for somebody that's invested so much money into it and he's paying other people, you know, when you've gotten most of your money from riding the wave rather than being on the side of truth, then that's your whole shtick, right? Is riding the wave of whatever's next on YouTube rather than doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is, in my opinion, we're no different, right? We adhere to our shareholders, and our shareholders are you all. So as you can imagine, it's not really that hard to stay in business when your shareholders are the people. So, with that being said, I want to go ahead and get started. Refresh this to make sure that everybody is good, that there's nothing crazy going on. Nah, Jody. Listen, Jody. We coming after his soul. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jody. I don't know if that's your man's. I don't know if that's your man's, but we're gonna have to take his soul. I need all that soul. If Pakman has one, you know, he might still be taking money from the wrong people. So that's probably where his soul is too. Give me 1 second, waiting for this to refresh to make sure everybody's good and inside the chat. All right, looks like we're good to go. So, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. I am your host, Niko House. I want to thank everybody who tuned in this entire this weekend, really. Who, you know, you might have tuned into the live stream of us interviewing Tulsi Gabbard on air, taking on really, and this is objectively speaking, these are some of the toughest questions, the toughest real questions that you will see asked to Tulsi Gabbard. Just as a brief, you know, synopsis of what she answered questions about the Israel-Palestine conflict. She answered questions about election justice and even acknowledged the fraud that took place in 2016. And she didn't try to make it a partisan issue by blaming the Republicans or trying to say that Russia somehow colluded with Donald Trump in order to steal our election. She said she agreed with Fiorella from the CONVO Couch, another show on this network, that the elections were rigged and that there should be steps taken. So she talked about that and the steps that she is personally taking to make sure that rigging does not happen again in the 2020 election. Now, on top of that, she answered questions about the CFR. For those of you who don't know, it's a Council of Foreign Relations. Tulsi Gabbard is currently a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. Now, what's even more interesting is the fact that she was actually pretty open about it. I thought that was going to be one of the more difficult questions I had to ask her. And she was pretty open about it. She was like, oh no, this is the process. She actually gives you a look into the process that she personally went through in order to be on the Council of Foreign Relations, which apparently has a lot to do with, like before she can even get on, she would have to be part of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Or before she get on the Foreign Affairs Committee, apparently being part of the Council of Foreign Relations, that was a requisite at the time. And she actually talks about the process, which is for the most part relatively secretive, of how she got on, and explains why she won't run away. You know, and that most of the people in CFR actually don't agree with her, but that's not going to, you know, deter her from making sure that they are doing, you know, that they are behaving in favor of the people rather than in favor of the elite. So that was really interesting to hear her perspective on that, amongst a plethora of other things. So, like I said, these are objectively some of the hardest questions that Tulsi Gabbard was forced to answer. And anybody who watched the interview live can attest to that. And I really encourage you all to go check out that interview. And I know a lot of you are probably wondering why I brought that part up. Well, I brought that part up because something happened over the last couple of days. Something happened. So as you all know, Anna Kasparian and myself had a little discussion. Well, more so, I called out Anna Kasparian on her BS, her claim that Tulsi Gabbard isn't a progressive, based off of nothing. And then she gives us a little clue, a little delve into her mind as to why she believes Tulsi Gabbard is not a progressive, and why her tone was so scathing when she was saying, you know, something that she considers to be a fact, that Tulsi Gabbard is a progressive, which, by the way, would objectively is not a fact. That would be opinion at the bare minimum, and a lie if you're actually progressive and if you know what it entails being a progressive. So that was a lie, because it was made, the accusation was made in bad faith, which I cover over and over again as to how I know it was made in bad faith, and how I know there is another element, another layer, that for some reason no one, well, I can't say no one, because a lot of people obviously agree with me rather than Anna, considering her last couple of videos didn't do too well about Tulsi. So I had to let everybody know that these are some, when we interviewed Tulsi Gabbard, these are some of the hardest questions that she's had to answer. Things that the independent community wouldn't answer for, you know, real questions, because at the end of the day, well, we know the difference between questions that are smears and that are not actually going to have an outcome on any of the policy decisions made in 2020 and after. We as independent community, the real independent community, like to delve into things like, I don't know, policy, for example, policy advocacy, for example, things like that. But not Anna and Dave. Anna and Dave love the ad hominem attacks. So, well, let me check out the super chat real quick. He said, about David Pakman, I used to donate to Free Speech TV, but after he smeared Jill Stein in 2016, which he did, I tuned him out and refrained from donating to Free Speech TV. Ironically enough, for which I believe 100%, by the way, he boasts about smearing Jill Stein in his video, and he just could not believe why some people left after he smeared Jill Stein. He just couldn't believe it. So, we're definitely going to address that entire situation. So we're going to get into this video by David Pakman. It covers a little bit of everything. So I felt like this would be the appropriate video to show here. I hate that I'm giving him free views, but hey, if it's in the name of bringing his ass to task, then I'm perfectly fine with it. So we'll go ahead and allow y'all to listen to this video, and then we'll go ahead and get right to it.
Want to talk about, and it has to do with two people. It has to do with our friend Anna Kasparian over at the Young Turks, and it also has to do with 2020 candidate Tulsi Gabbard, and it kind of also has to do with cults of personality, which I've talked about before. I've talked about how these cults of personality can develop around
Okay, so first of all, let me pause this. If it'll let me, YouTube not trying to let me pause it. First of all, I just want you to I don't know if you all caught something. And I caught this almost immediately. Anybody notice he was like, this is really about two people? Which is partially true. It involves Anna. It involves Tulsi Gabbard. Now, why do I think this is important? Because I think it's important to also understand the people that we're dealing with and the clear ulterior motive, if you will, that we're dealing with. If you're part of this channel and you have been part of this channel, or if you came to this channel because of the quote unquote situation between Anna Kasparian and myself, then you know that this entire thing popped off, if you will, because Anna said during a show that was live, but it was behind a paywall, that Tulsi Gabbard is not progressive. Now, I got a lot of friends out there in this world who do things like stay subscribed to TYT and will continue to pay to show me how they are lying to progressives about other progressives. And I'm very thankful and fortunate to have people who are more than willing to spend their dollars to make sure that people like Anna Kasparian are held accountable. When that happened, when David said that, like at first I kind of didn't think anything of it, but then I thought, you're missing a big part of the story, right? Well, because if you look at the whole picture, because this is David 101, right? This is Anna Kasparian really 101, or what I like to call the new crop of neoliberals. Call that the neoliberal lights. The neoliberal lights are a different breed because they like to pretend to be on your side, but in actuality they aren't. And so when he says that this is only about two people and that this was only started with Anna Kasparian and her quote unquote takedown of Tulsi, don't you think that he's kind of lying by omission, considering that if you, I don't know, you click on this channel called MCSC Network with Niko House, then you might end up figuring out some truths, right? So in the same breath that he elevates Anna, because that's his goal in this video, he is trying to denigrate Tulsi without ever bringing up, well, you know, if you want some decent coverage, or if you want to, you know, get the entire story, here are all the people involved. But he didn't do that. Now, this isn't, by the way, all that unsurprising, because this is actually something that we have seen done. Me personally, I've seen done over and over again when it comes to coverage that involves me. Whether it had been with Jordan Sheridan when he tried to blackmail me because of which he tried not to get my name involved, but then he ended up doing it and it wasn't working out in his favor. And therefore he had to double down on trying to blackmail me for calling out TYT's illegitimate coverage of the DNC fraud lawsuit, and also telling people where exactly that $2 million went to that they supposedly raised to bring in a bunch of investigative journalists, which is not what happened, in case you were curious, which is, of course, one of the reasons he tried to blackmail me. Even though he tried to blackmail me by saying, I have this email that you sent when you originally applied to TYT 3 years ago, and Jordan was the one who told me to apply to TYT. So he tried it, didn't work out. He tried to pretend like I didn't exist, but then it didn't work out in his favor. That's what I mean. So I've seen other people do this in various ways. Most recently, and regarding this incident, Mike Figueredo and David Dole more than Mike apparently took issue with my takedown of Anna, or more so my takedown of the thing that she said about Tulsi. And they took issue with the people who supported my takedown, which was probably a little bit more than they had expected. Shout out to you guys. And they decided to talk about it on Twitter. Oh, hold on. Let me talk about this super chat real quick. Gorm the Elder. As a European viewer, you add an independent black voice to the conversation that can be hard to find elsewhere. This is vital for good understanding of American politics. Thanks, my man. Oh, I appreciate that. So David Dole and Mike Figueredo took issue with what I said about Anna and what other people have been saying about Anna, to such a degree that they went over to my, just kidding, they didn't tag me. Nobody ever tagged me. They went over to Kim Iverson's Twitter to let them know how they felt about it, which was kind of weird. Don't you think that's kind of weird to go like and what was weird is I was untagged. Like Kim Iverson tagged me, but I was untagged. I don't know if they did it on accident or on purpose, but it seems like to me everybody wants to talk about this predicament. All the neoliberal lights is what I'm referring to. David, I don't want to call David Dole and Mike Figueredo neoliberal lights. I don't want to call them that, because I do believe that for the most part they're well-intentioned, but I don't believe that they don't know I'm involved. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In fact, if you say my name, if you tag me in the post, hell, if you Google my name on YouTube and your Tulsi Gabbard video comes up, there's a good chance that either myself or Fiorella and Craig of the CONVO Couch or Kim Iverson, because that's just the order that it's coming, have debunked your video, have debunked the lies that you've put out there, have debunked the smears that either the Anna Kasparian, the David Pakmans, or otherwise have put out there. Now, why would you want to stop other people from seeing the truth? Because I don't have a problem with people. I'll call people out by name. I have zero problem with that, as you all know. I have zero problem with that at 30,000 subscribers. I'll have zero problem with that at 500,000 subscribers. I don't care. Because if you know the truth and you're aware of the facts and you're on the right side of history, then that's irrelevant. But the David Pakmans of the world, they do care. Because they're worried about elevating someone else who's going to be a little bit more progressive than they are. So what you saw in that first 18 seconds or so is David trying to pretend like this is only a two-person incident. Like, oh, Tulsi and her supporters are just mad at Anna out of nowhere. This didn't originate from anything. didn't originate from Tulsi literally saying, or excuse me, Anna literally saying verbatim, Tulsi isn't a progressive. Tulsi is not a progressive on foreign policy. Didn't originate from there at all. But okay. Let's just take David's word for it. Hold on, to see. I think we got one more. Did we get another super chat? Okay, I don't think so.
Generally, it's just not good. And it also has to do with 2020 candidate Tulsi Gabbard. And it kind of also has to do with cults of personality, which I've talked about before. I've talked about how these cults of personality can develop around politicians. And generally, it's just not good. Spirited, enthusiastic, supportive candidates that you think will be good for America, that's great. We want that. We want people to be engaged. We want people advocating for people and policies that they think are going to bring positive change. Who could possibly criticize that? Engaging in a respectful and sort of issues-oriented debate, even if there are strong disagreements, that's great. I'm all for it. It's what I do. This show is built around that idea. But when the behavior starts to become obsessive and it turns into a cult of personality, generally speaking, it's bad, and we should call it out when that's going on. We saw this, and we still see it around Donald Trump and his followers. There's a serious cult of personality around Donald Trump, and you can often tell because when you criticize Trump policy, the blowback from his supporters is ad hominem. It's talking points and memes and personal attacks and insults. There's no doubt that there was a sort of cult of personality around George W. Bush. It's not just the right. There are cults of personality around people that are ostensibly on the left. If you go back to the 2016 election, Jill Stein, I would criticize Jill Stein on issues, and the blowback would be, I'm an establishment shill, smearing Jill Stein. I'm a Jew who can't see the truth like Jill Stein is able to, all of this stuff. There was a slight cult of personality around Bernie in 2016. Now, not all Bernie supporters, in fact, most did not sort of support Bernie in this way. I was a Bernie supporter in 2016, but there was this enclave of the sort of Bernie or bust movement that had a component of that toxic cult of personality. So these cults exist.
So first of all, y'all heard the first comparison he tried to make so that it didn't. Did you hear that association? Then he realized, like, maybe have it like, damn, this is too obvious, right? He said, David Pakman, it is a cult of personality. David, what kind of personality? What cult of personality are you referring to? Because I'm trying to understand. When you have a movement, because there is legitimate cult of personality for all the people that he listed, right? Except for Tulsi, and I'm gonna explain why. Super chat from Bram SLI1. As a veteran, Tulsi is my choice, and Pakman is simply reaching here because he knows there's no substance to his argument. 100% agree. But here's the difference between Bernie Sanders and so Bernie Sanders, right? He does have a cult of personality followers. Like, you can argue one way or another. Like, it's just kind of like when you're as popular as Bernie Sanders is, you're going to have that. I don't think there's a debate there. Hillary Clinton clearly had the same thing. Donald Trump clearly has the same thing. Now, here's what separates all three of them from Tulsi Gabbard. Just in all seriousness, how popular is Bernie Sanders? Ridiculously popular, well known. Hillary Clinton, ridiculously popular and well known. Like name recognition wise, when I say well known. Donald Trump, more popular than some would care to admit, has name recognition and has an entire career before his politics to lean on as far as developing a cultic personality. So the cult of personality, that argument might sound all well and good, except for Tulsi's the only one who hasn't even had the chance for people to discover her personality, like in the mainstream world, to make his argument valid. Like, you have to have like kind of almost a glimpse into people's personality, at least a pretend glimpse. And we really didn't get that glimpse in the current election cycle until this past weekend, which once again happened after Anna's initial critique of Tulsi. Now, interestingly enough, David talks about the cult of personality, and yet in ad hominem attacks, and says that people will, who refuse to do discussions about policy and if we're going to have a disagreement, it needs to be about that, right? He's a cult of personality. I want y'all, just in that first 2 minutes, y'all notice something weird and ironic about that statement? David goes on for about a minute or two about cult personalities and ad hominem attacks, and then displays a clear neoliberal-like cult of personality, followed up by ad hominem attacks, and even tried to loosely associate Tulsi supporters with Trump supporters. Did anybody else catch that? Like, you can't say you hate cult of personality that result in ad hominem attacks and then use ad hominem attacks to justify your clear cult of personality, because that's the only way you would be able to legitimately defend Anna Kasparian, because if you've done the research, you would know there's really no defense of her. But this is a defensive cult of personality. Why do you dislike Tulsi? Because Tulsi doesn't play the neoliberal game that would, require you to report fair and objectively and unbiased. Because she says things like nonpartisan, progressive. If she does call herself anything, it is a progressive, but she refuses to categorize herself and her beliefs as a Democrat or Republican because they shouldn't be codified as such, because she does think outside of the bubble of the duopoly. And, well, unfortunately for David and the Kasparians of the world and the TYTs and all the other ones who just wish to pretend as if Tulsi isn't progressive and isn't by far, once again, objectively speaking, is the most progressive one. You want to say she's not the most experienced when it comes to domestic policy? Cool. I'll give that to Bernie Sanders any day of the week. That's not really what I'm debating. Because there is such thing as experience. And then what Tulsi has, in my opinion, over the last 3 or 4 years is the right experience. And not only has the right experience, but she has more fight in her. Willing to take on any and everybody she has to. She has more fight in her than anyone else. And that is also something you need to get progressive policies passed. But we could take it even a step further once again, and we could talk about the Securing America's Elections Act, which would make it required for voter verified paper ballots for everything. Doesn't matter what you use federally, this is what has to take place. So those are progressive policies that are even further than where Bernie Sanders was willing to take it. Just saying. So what would be the reason for justifying disparaging Tulsi as not being progressive, lying about her foreign policy, using smears, and I'm going to explain to Anna Kasparian what a smear is, because clearly she doesn't know. Like, what would justify you even trying to defend Anna Kasparian? Like, so clearly, like, viscerally, because this video is maybe a day old. So this is a visceral defense with a lot of missing information, because his friend was embarrassed and is upset because she threw a little hissy fit because she didn't get her way, apparently. We're going to discuss that too. So without all the facts presented to you, you still decide to make this video, and we're supposed to believe that you're not personally suffering from a cult of personality. All the facts would not agree with that. David, you're suffering from a cult of personality. And once again, you're joining in with the rest of the people who are, you gotta realize, people, there is this group of YouTubers who are invested in the success of TYT. TYT would be the progressive gatekeeper, if you will, of views, or at least it has been for some time. In the same way that Joe Rogan would be the algorithm gatekeeper for the intellectual dark web. Because that's just how long he's been around. That's how popular he is. That's how many subscribers he has. So these people don't want to piss off TYT. They have a vested interest in either not taking sides or almost damn near always siding with TYT. That's cult of personality But two, that's a cult of personality manifesting because of a vested interest in the success of one particular conglomerate. That's what we're seeing. He's right up there with the Sam Cedars of the world and the Anacast. Like, that's what we're seeing. What have we always talked about on this channel? There's two different type of YouTubers. There's activists who gave up everything to tell the truth, and there's the other side, the people who saw a financial opportunity and jumped on it. David is in the latter, not the former. So let's continue.
On the left, they exist on the right. And right now, I'm seeing it with Tulsi Gabbard. Every time I critique Tulsi Gabbard, the level of vitriol and toxicity that is in the comments and reactions is notable. Attacks against me, claims that I'm smearing without actually refuting any of the assertions that I make factually. So I was really interested when last week Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks did an episode of No Filter, where she has previously critiqued and analyzed multiple 2020 candidates. She did a segment about Tulsi Gabbard. The segment was good. I tweeted the segment. It was filled with
So what did he say? He said she critiques multiple 20. Hold on, we got another super chat. Let me see if I can bring it up. Trying to minimize the cultic personality of Bernie. Oh, hold on. This kind of froze a little bit. Let me see if I can get it scroll up. I basically get the gist of it. My computer froze a little bit. Oh, here we go. Funny how he bent over backwards to make sure to minimize the cultic personality of Bernie while playing it up for Tulsi. And I love Bernie. 100% agree. And that's why I think that us commonsensical Bernie supporters can kind of read through the nonsense, because you know when someone is telling the truth about your team, right? And although I endorsed Tulsi Gabbard the other day, that doesn't mean I don't support Bernie Sanders. For those of you who are curious, just like because Tulsi is running for president doesn't mean she doesn't support Bernie, and just because Bernie is running for president doesn't mean that Bernie doesn't support Tulsi. By the way, in case you were curious, they do support each other, and you should expect to see more of that develop in the future. So they're not doing themselves any favor when they figure out just how much support Tulsi Gabbard actually does have. But at the end of the day, he just tried to claim that Anna Kasparian did a legitimate takedown of Tulsi. It was based off of facts. He played the ad hominem attack card again. Oh, look at how I'm treated. And I critique all of the presidential candidate, or she critiques all of them in these type of segments. Little things like this are lies and or lies by omission. In this particular case, it was both. He lied and then lied by omission. She doesn't do segments like this about all the candidates, in case you're curious. She damn sure didn't do one like this against Bernie Sanders, because then what she would have to talk about the fact that, once again, the unfortunate truth is Bernie Sanders actually supports drone strikes just like Tulsi Gabbard. In the right situations. Once again, that's actually not even something I necessarily 100% agree with for either of them. But as a veteran, I get Tulsi's perspective, and understanding Bernie's perspective, he's concerned about putting American lives in danger as well. So like, I get that perspective about the drone strike. So, but she would have mentioned that, right? It would be all over, right? This would be a quote that's actually discussed when it comes to TYT and Anna, but that's actually not discussed a lot by progressives, and a lot of it is because of people like like Anna Kasparian, refusing to cover any of the negative realities that Bernie supporters should know about, because I knew about them as a Bernie supporter. I feel like you all feel like you should want to know everything about your candidate. Maybe she doesn't know, but I doubt that, because Anna watched my video. She watched it, which is why she got so upset and did the takedown of Tulsi Gabbard and talked to me on Twitter and talked all that trash to me and wanted to go back and forth, where her and Emma talk about things that Tulsi never clarified, even though she did. Like, that what David said was untrue, verifiably. Go to Anna's or TYT's page right now. Show me the takedown, the vehement takedown of Elizabeth Warren, and the fact that she openly said she was going to take corporate money, everything she can, to beat Trump. She's gonna take. She was, I mean, just fervent about it. Was actually kind of weirdly celebratory about taking all that money. Basically pretending as if, you know, it's different when you're taking it to run against the Republicans, but it's not, because you're taking it from the same people, which means you'll likely be adherent to the same interests, which is why people are not stupid about this. They're not naive. We know who you represent when you take money. So just because, once again, you can not take money during the primary, where you know that if it came down to it, the establishment would back you if it was just between you and one other progressive. And then during the general election, you can reassure your corporate donors, like, and the powers that be, well, just letting everybody know I was just playing. That was for show, but I'm really the nominee and I really need that corporate money. So Tintin Mosley, keep pushing, brother. Love your passion, intellect, and in-depth analysis of the issues. Towards 2020. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And so, but I dare anybody to go look that up. Look up that segment. It doesn't exist. And the segment that also doesn't exist is Anna saying matter-of-factly, as if there is no doubt in her mind that Tulsi Gabbard somehow isn't a progressive, even though she's better than 99% of progressives on 99% of the issues. There's only one that goes toe-to-toe with her regarding progressivism, and that's Bernie Sanders. And that's toe-to-toe, and I mean that in every sense of the word, because for people who think that Bernie is that much more progressive domestically than Tulsi Gabbard, I would once again beg to differ. Securing America's Elections Act that Tulsi Gabbard introduced has 0 progressive co-sponsors. It's one sponsor from DC, the original creator of the 2002 legislation to protect elections. But we talk about a cult of personality. We talk about all the things, you know, candidates being covered fairly. Why isn't it that Anna Kasparian and TYT why haven't they done an in-depth coverage of Tulsi's introduction of the Securing America's Elections Act? I mean, these are the, you know, they champion the Justice Democrats. They champion progressives. Why hasn't there been a discussion about not only that particular act, that particular amendment that would literally change the game for every progressive we want to see elected, but why haven't you covered the fact that no other progressive has endorsed a nonpartisan election justice amendment that would allow us and allow voters to feel more secure in an election justice or an electoral system that we unfortunately have every right to, by the way, feel extremely insecure about. We have no faith in our election justice and electoral system. And yet we see David Pakman protecting his little, you know, friend, Anna Kasparian. We see Anna Kasparian dedicating way too much time and energy and effort to smearing Tulsi instead of celebrating progressives, instead of uplifting progressives. We see way too much time of them smearing and not covering policies, right? Because that's what David said we should be debating. We should be debating policy. That's what Anna said. Anna said she has legitimate critiques of Tulsi's policy. But the only things of Tulsi that Anna, or even some of the Tulsi detractors, if you will, try and celebrate of Tulsi domestically, are the policies that they know Bernie Sanders already supports. Because then you could just say, and once again, this is as a Bernie Sanders fan, you could say easily, well, why would we need Tulsi, right? We have Bernie on domestic policy, so why would we need Tulsi? Elizabeth Warren isn't a threat to the current neoliberal lights, because they get to say, while still bringing over the Elizabeth Warren type of crew, basically the Russiagators, basically. You get to keep them by celebrating Elizabeth Warren. But you don't get to keep the if you call out, if you talk about Tulsi and bring up how far and really She's far and away better domestically than Bernie in some instances, and this is one of them. That securing American Elections Act, means that Bernie can get his policies passed because progressives end up in office. This should be something that AOC co-sponsors. This should be something that Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, even Ilhan Omar, as celebratory as I've been on all of them, right? I've been celebratory of all of their candidacies. I've been critical and celebratory of their tenure as politicians. And yet, I would love to hear an official statement from all their campaigns, including Bernie Sanders, on why they have not co-sponsored this. Now, if you would have told me 2017 that they couldn't co-sponsor it, obviously, they're not there. So it makes sense, right? Maybe she'd only have one or two progressive co-sponsors. But even in 2017, Bernie Sanders, nor any of these political commentators or pundits, except for myself and maybe two others, they didn't talk about this when she originally introduced it. So this isn't the first time that Tulsi Gabbard has tried to, quote unquote, secure America's elections. But yet, there have been people who have consistently said that our elections are rigged, but only use that to point out when the Republicans are doing it, refusing to hold accountable the Democrats who participate in the same malicious behavior. And I'm supposed to believe that Anna is somehow more progressive and magnanimous and altruistic and objective in her reporting. Yeah, okay. Just knowing that, everybody should be pretty obvious. You didn't do no takedown like this about Bernie Sanders. You damn sure haven't done one about Elizabeth Warren. We've been looking, and hell, we're still waiting for it. I mean, you could do one like this about Yang, I guess, but my point is that she hasn't done it. And there's a reason that you hear this much animus in her voice, in her tone about Tulsi. There's something more at play. And in my opinion, it is the real cult of a personality. The real cult of personality, excuse me. And that is a protection of one's self-interest. The truth of the matter is, Tulsi stands for everything that these people hate and have been able to shield themselves from, which is we get to pretend to be progressive when it's convenient, and then when the narrative changes, we get to draw in from all the neoliberals. And that has been a successful business model for them up until the last couple of years. Because now it's different. It's different because people are looking for true progressivism and true objectivity. And they're not getting that from these type of channels anymore. They just want the truth. They don't want to sugarcoat it with Democrat and Republican spins. They want the truth and nothing but. So, hold on. We did get a super chat. I want to go ahead and go to it before we get back into the video. Long-time TYT supporter, but absolutely right about Tulsi. Stay strong, brother. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
With fact-based critiques, as Anna Kasparian saw them, based on things that Tulsi Gabbard has said, or things that she's done, or based on how she voted. There were no ad hominems from...
Hey, everybody. I just want everybody to know that Anna's critiques were totally fact-based. Now, the year that those facts were established, that's neither here nor there. And the facts that she left out almost in their totality, those are also relevant. But as long as the facts as Anna sees them were presented in Anna's discussion, then who are we to be upset or critical of Anna Kasparian's ridiculously absurd smear attempt of Tulsi Gabbard? Who are we to be critical of that? You know what I'm saying?
From Anna, there were no smears. The video got a ton of comments that are just likes, more dislikes than likes, and it got a ton of comments that are just disgusting. Stuff like Anna's a hack.
So, by the way, once again, the part that he left out was, by the way, shout out to you guys. Love you all. In that comment section, when you first saw the video, before they started scrubbing the comments and all that good stuff, which a lot of you saw, and you all called this out to me very early on because I damn sure wouldn't have been able to catch it. But, oh man, I had a fly in here. But a lot of those comments said something else. which is kind of an important fact to leave out. A lot of those comments said, debate Niko, Anna. Debate Niko. Why are you gonna do this instead of debate Niko? If you're gonna talk about this, why not debate Niko straight up? I mean, that was the whole reason I went to California. Tulsi Gabbard just happened to be there, to be honest with you. It just literally worked out that way. But the reason I went to California was to debate Anna. Anna dodged. Anna responded to any and everybody except for Niko House. But the whole reason that video was put out, if you all recall, was because I called out Anna for smearing Tulsi, for literally lying about Tulsi. By any objective person's definition of progressive, Tulsi is that, and then some. But then on top of that, she tried to double down on Twitter by using an ad hominem attack against me, which, of course, David didn't bring up. Once again, because why would you bring up somebody that you perceive as quote-unquote your competition and being a progressive? And the truth of the matter is, that's exactly why he didn't bring me up, like I talked about earlier. Why would you bring me up? Then they're going to figure out like, oh, shit, I don't know shit about Tulsi Gabbard. This guy does. My video would be totally shredded if anybody saw what actually happened throughout this. So instead, I'm going to make a one-sided video, never even going to mention how this entire situation started, and hope that everyone just believes me, and claim that Anna's video was completely based in facts and reality. Yeah, okay.
An attack on Tulsi. Anna's not really progressive. Anna loves ISIS. I could go on just telling you the stuff that was said, but you probably get the idea. So far, nothing is surprising. Okay, we've seen this around Tulsi Gabbard since she announced her candidacy. So the next thing that happens is that our friend Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks interviews Tulsi Gabbard in the Young Turks studio a few days after Anna's video is put out. And it's notable that Anna isn't part of the interview. Cenk is interviewing Tulsi Gabbard. Anna has been part of other interviews that TYT has done with 2020 contenders and politicians who visit their studio, but Anna's not there. And this leads to even more smears of Anna.
So let me just say something. And once again, you all are more than free to go and verify and re-verify. Anna hasn't been a part of any of the 2020 presidential interviews. If I recall, Cenk did the interview with Bernie. Cenk conducted the interview with Elizabeth Warren, and Cenk conducted the interview with Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think that they've interviewed anybody else, but Anna was not a part of any of those interviews. So even once again, that very statement is a verifiable lie, and also makes it a little bit harder to believe him when he is trying to make the case that somehow Tulsi Gabbard blocked Anna from interviewing her or being part of that interview, which I will speak on in a second. Oh shit, hold on. Make sure that, okay, y'all can hear me. Okay, good stuff. Just want to make sure. All right, so we're gonna debunk that part too. So let's continue.
Presumably as a result of the video Anna did last week, said that Tulsi would not participate in the interview if Anna participates, that Anna should not be part of the interview with Tulsi Gabbard. Anna followed up about this and actually said the following in a reaction video yesterday. Take a look.
Although I would have loved to ask Gabbard about the issues raised in my previous episode of No Filter, I was informed by her camp that I would not be part of the interview she had with TYT last Friday. It was surprising and a very surprising demand, considering no other candidate had done the same, regardless of how critical I've been about their positions in the past. I've said multiple times that true leaders put themselves in uncomfortable positions when it's the right thing to do, and answering the questions I had was the right thing to do. Cenk Uygur conducted a great interview, and I highly recommend you all check out the full conversation on TYT's YouTube page. But to set the record straight for those who think I ran from that interview, understand that I was in the same room watching as it took place. It was the first time any politician walked into my home and told me that I wasn't allowed to do my job. So you can disagree with my analysis, you can have a different perspective, but you can't argue that I smeared her without providing a single example of me fabricating anything.
Oh my God, bruh. Hold on, let me get this super chat knocked out. Oh, thank you, Daedalus stream. I appreciate it. Oh, man. First of all, let me just go ahead and say, so she claimed that she didn't smear Tulsi. Now, her justification for this claim was made earlier in that video. That part, David didn't show, probably for time's sake. David fails to point out one problem with his analysis and what Anna's theory about smearing, and she fails to acknowledge this as well. Smearing isn't the same thing necessarily as libel. If I recall, libelous is writing about, writing a lie. Slandering is speaking a lie. So smearing and slander are not the same thing. Slander would be an actual lie. Nobody said that you necessarily, per se, lied about some of the facts that you presented in that video. Nobody said that. However, I did say that I will lie. I lied. I did say for a fact, you said that she supported torture when she does not, nor has she ever supported torture. Her voting record proves this. You try to say that because she answered out of a 45-second answer, said, and I guess in the rarest of situations where I would have to get information out of somebody, I would do what's necessary to keep the country safe. But no, I wouldn't. And her record reflects this, which she's already clarified. But of course, Anna's too good to do things like look up interviews or research articles and things that journalists are expected to do. But neither here nor there, right? So she goes on to say that she didn't smear Tulsi. Let me explain what a smear is. A smear is when you have the facts, right? You got facts. You have the whole picture, right? And you take your thumb in the middle of that painting and start distorting the picture however you see fit in order to make the picture look uglier to the average person than it looked before. Especially people who are unaware of what the picture looked like before you stuck your thumb in the middle of it and started doing this. Right? I think we can all agree. That's what a smear is. So her justification for smearing Tulsi is that she didn't lie completely. Although she did, and once again, David, because of his cult of personality, if you will, as he so eloquently puts it, David forgot to call this out. Anna forgets to acknowledge this. And I love it because Dave is all about philosophies and giving definitions to people. And he loves defining to us words that have already been defined plenty of times. David's super intellectual, guys. I don't know if you knew this. Super intellectual. With that being said, David and Anna don't know what the definition of smearing is. Clearly, that is a smear. What she did to Tulsi were smears and they were verifiably untrue. Now, once again, if David would have mentioned my name, then you might just figure out, because you type in Tulsi's name into this and you type in my name, then you might just find out, because luckily the YouTube guys, the algorithms have blessed me with being the first channel that comes up if you ever mention Tulsi's name. You might just figure out that everything that David and Anna said was full. They're full of it. They're full of shit. And you'll figure that out if he says my name, which is once again why he refuses to do so. Which is for a lot of Pakman supporters, or at least people who watch the video, are probably confused. They're like, there seems to be more to this story than originally talked about in David's video, because there is. And You know, you can obviously watch all the videos that I did, or the two videos that I did, putting Anna, or 3, I guess technically, the 3 videos I did putting Anna in her place. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Even if I'm not even going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what I know for a fact, and then, but before I tell you that, even if Tulsi had, for the first time in her life, denied an interview and said that someone else couldn't be a part of it, even if that was the first time, like, because that's what it would be. In case Anna didn't tell you that part, that would literally be the first time Tulsi's ever done that in history. Now, I wouldn't really blame her for not sitting down with Anna. Why would you want to be in the same room with that person? That woman literally lied to you straight to your face. The only person that would be helped by Anna being part of that interview would be Anna Kasparian. So she can drag this on for them, and she wants to be a part of that interview because, like, it would elevate her. I mean, interviewing a presidential candidate is going to boost anybody's profile. And she wants to be known as a woman who attacks Tulsi, and funny enough, is going to be ultimately known as a woman who got it wrong. But I wouldn't really blame Tulsi for sitting down that interview, or for not allowing you to be a part of it. Now, with that being said, like, just because Anna was a complete and total bitch, like, let's be honest. But with that being said, you gotta be hard pressed to believe a damn thing that comes out of Anna Kasparian's mouth after she just spent the last 3 years being wrong. She spent the last 3 years being 100% wrong. You know, it's funny because I saw somebody bring this up, and I was going to actually bring this up too. The thing about Tucker Carlson, so Tucker Carlson is wrong 98% of the time, right? For the last 3 years, Tucker Carlson has been wrong about 98 to 97% of the time. And guess what? He is still more correct than Anna Kasparian when it comes to most issues in politics. Because she gets it 99% wrong. The one time she kind of sort of gets it right is on social issues, but never really when it comes to people of color. She's the one, you know, that white all lives matter friend who says that we don't know if that was racist for everything that was clearly a racist issue, a racism issue. She's one of those. So Anna don't get to pretend as if we're just supposed to believe her. Because I don't know if y'all noticed something about that video that Anna dropped, but you notice there was a peculiar date about that. And if you don't know, I'm going to let you know because she knows. I like how she released that video the evening of Monday in California time after Tulsi leaves. Isn't that interesting? Also, you notice how nobody on TYT has corroborated that statement that Anna was forced to sit out of the interview? Because Jank could have easily gone on Twitter when people were like, yeah, BS Anna, nobody believes that, and defended her. But he didn't. Interesting. Matter of fact, John didn't defend her. The people that were supposedly around Anna didn't defend her. Notary S. It made me very sad to see that TYT and Anna go this direction. As painful as it is. Hold on, let me go back to this. As painful as it is, though, we are fighting for stopping wars. People's lives are in the balance. The onus lies with TYT to fix this. 100%, my friend. 100%. I agree completely. That's why I don't like when people are like, oh, it's progressive infighting. This isn't progressive infighting. This is vetting. You're assuming that all of us are independent. You're assuming that all of us are progressive. And no, that's not the case. I'm sorry. And it sucks when you kind of realize that if you've been a TYT fan for this long, but at some point you just kind of have to remember, like, at the end of the day, they came from mainstream. They didn't go to school for politics. They didn't join journalism because they just cared so much about political integrity and journalistic integrity. They went for a career choice. There's a difference. So, like I was saying, Jank didn't come and corroborate this statement of Anna. Nobody has. Only Anna. Only Anna. And here's what's interesting. So you know this little no filter segment that she's done. She has a lot of facts involved. You know, she has a whole post-production crew that does the work for her. Don't you think if there was some proof of this supposed statement that was given to Anna by her campaign, that Anna would have posted it? If anybody in TYT were around to hear this statement, Anna would have posted it, or at least they would have joined in and corroborated Anna's claim that Tulsi's camp told her to sit down. I'm just curious. Like, anybody else? Anybody? Did anybody come out and defend her? Because I don't think I heard that. If it was, I didn't hear it. If you heard it, maybe. No? Okay, that's what I thought. Not to mention, I talked to Tulsi and well, her name is Vrindavan, but her sister, who is her de facto, if you will, campaign manager. Something interesting that Anna doesn't talk about was the fact that both Tulsi and her sister were actually confused as to why she was behind the camera and not interviewing Tulsi. I talked to her after the event, like after the interview. This is the next day, and we were laughing about it. This is the unofficial take of the campaign. Now, the campaign probably isn't going to address it, because if I was a presidential candidate, why would Anna Kasparian even be worth my breath as an individual? 100%. So that's why she got me to handle light work. So I will speak on my behalf in my interactions, because I know they won't have a problem with that. So after that interview, the only two people who would have had the authority to make such a demand, which would be Tulsi and her sister, would be those two. And they were as confused as we all were as to why Anna Kasparian was not behind that, or not in front of that camera interviewing as well. Once again, that looks like more of a format issue than anything, because every presidential interview conducted by TYT has been jank in a one-on-one setting. So that seems more believable. Now, it gets even better when you consider about the fact that the day of that interview, I was the second place that Tulsi Gabbard had visited. And she was really, really excited about that interview. She was. The whole camp was. Because they wanted Tulsi to be able to sit face to face with her and put her in her place. So from the interactions I had with Tulsi and her sister beforehand, to the interactions I had with Tulsi and her sister after the interview, it seemed to me that what Anna is claiming is nonsense. I mean, not only those interactions, obviously, but also the interactions that I've known the TYT to have with previous presidential candidates, right? Like I said, these segments with presidential candidates, and once again, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't watch TYT consistently at all, clearly. However, I am familiar with their last three presidential candidate interviews: Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Tulsi Gabbard. All of them have been one-on-one, and all of them have been jank, and all of them have been in the same format. Now, my thing as well is, let's just say that there is some truth. Well, if somebody's going to claim something to be fact, if somebody's going to claim something to be fact, then I would at least like to see their frame of logic. And even the logic isn't on Anna Kasparian's side. It's about as much on her side as it is on David's side. Because even the logic doesn't make sense. So someone randomly from TYT's camp made the first decision in the history of Tulsi's campaign and her tenure as a congresswoman to run away from an interview with Anna Kasparian, but then would subsequently allow Cenk to ask all the same nonsensical questions that Anna presented in her little rundown, her little what did you call it? No filter. That's completely and totally scripted. It makes perfect sense why they call it no filter. I'm sure it's supposed to be irony, I guess. I don't know. But basically, she the camp let Cenk ask all those stupid asks. Because I mean, the majority of the questions were idiotic. Her whole Steve Bannon analysis that I thought had some legitimacy to it, was apparently based off of an anonymous tip-off from 2 years ago, whenever they were considering Tulsi Gabbard to be part of the Trump administration to basically talk about and discuss and be a part of foreign policy. That is what they were actually referring to. But what they also don't talk about is the fact that Steve Bannon also just said that the winning ticket for beating Trump would be Kamala Harris and Beto O'Rourke. I don't know. Is Anna going to talk about that? I'm just curious. I'm curious. So she let Cenk go on and ask all of these ridiculous questions, but wouldn't let you be a part of it. Because Tulsi Gabbard, who's been deployed multiple times, who goes on The View and gets berated, goes on MSNBC and gets berated with nonsense, goes to town halls and gets berated with nonsense. I get it, Anna. You're basically trying to convince us that Tulsi isn't scared of anyone but Anna Kasparian. Oh my God, Anna, I did not know you had that much power. Wow. So influential you are. Wow. It makes me think twice about critiquing Anna Kasparian. Because if she's just the one kryptonite of Tulsi, then how can someone like us plebes, like us peons, have any chance against the might of an Anna Kasparian interview? Bruh. Really? Anna, come on. We need proof. Because literally the only people that would have that authority, except for maybe, just maybe one other person. Maybe one. But the scheduler, the ones who scheduled the interviews didn't say that. Tulsi didn't say that. Her sister didn't say that. And these are the ones who are de facto in charge of her campaign, of these aspects of her campaign. And then the only other one that could have said something like that would be the acting campaign manager, who's an interim. But I doubt that he was there. Which once again means that you need to show some proof. Say a name, something. Give us some type of inclination that you aren't completely full of shit. Because that's what it's coming off as at this very moment. You were wrong for 3 years. You got exposed for that nonsensical no filter where you tried to take clips of First of all, you tried to take clips of 2016 or 2015 that weren't even matching the claims that you were trying to make. It actually ended up making Tulsi look better than worse. You're trying to claim that the original no filter was objective. It wasn't. Once again, I debunked literally everything in that video. And then Tulsi went on your channel, into your home, which can't, in my opinion, be the home of progressives while Anna Kasparian is still living there. That's neither here nor there. She went into your home, answered your questions again, and debunked them. Your questions that are completely based off of neoliberal smears. But what's new? That's basically where TYT gets all their talking points nowadays. And then you're going to make another no-filter video trying to boost your presence again off of Tulsi Gabbard, because what you have to realize is, if you're the quote-unquote home of progressives, and it is this supposed cult of personality, and you damn sure almost got all dislikes before y'all started scrubbing the like and dislike ratio. The like and dislike ratio. You almost got all mostly dislikes, and you still have mostly dislikes. But I mean, the numbers I was seeing was like 1.2 thousand dislikes with 200 likes. The comments were exclusively critical of her, and calling out the facts that all these things had been debunked, and yet Anna continued to perpetuate the smears, neoliberal smears once again. So what exactly do you call it? Like, why should we believe anything Anna has to say? Especially when the only one that comes out to defend you, like fervently defend you, is David Pakman. And then the other ones who come out to defend you either belong to TYT. They didn't say that what she was saying is true, by the way. It was some David Dole on Twitter said, oh, if this is true, but he basically is aligning with the narrative that somehow Tulsi Gabbard told her she could. This is as a brief aside, one more before we finish this up. Why would, in the middle of a drama that she is aware her name is involved in, with a particular person in which she is more than aware feels a certain type of way about her, why would the Tulsi campaign or Tulsi herself give you ammo by denying you an interview? At the best case scenario, I believe it was probably something like, we don't have enough time to do this. Like, if you want a separate interview with me, we don't have enough time. If you can't be a part of this, then I don't know what to tell you, because they had an event to go to as soon as their interview with TYT was concluded. They only had time for that 30 to 45 minutes. We didn't even get to go into all of the questions that we wanted to ask. We have to reschedule another interview probably online. So like, that is probably the worst case scenario, or the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that Anna is outright lying. But let's be very clear about something. The claim that David tried to make is that Tulsi refused to be a part of the interview if Anna was going to be sitting down with her. That's not true. That's not true. I mean, Anna just sat there for what, 3 or 4 straight days and lied about Tulsi. She never clarified this. She believes in this. She supported by Steve Bannon. She's endorsed by Steve Bannon. So basically, Anna spent the last 3 days behaving like MSNBC, and then is going to try to make a claim using her progressive cred, and is probably going to be even more surprised whenever we all treat her like the MSNBC personality she's been for the last week. Because you don't get to pretend to be MSNBC and then come back and pretend to be progressive like you've had some established cred that you've built up. That's not how it works, homie. You want to convince us? You want to have people come in and corroborate the story? I'm trying to understand why nobody has. And if that's the case, if Cenk wants to come out and verify, yeah, this is true, then that's enough. Even though I don't really believe Cenk as much, that would give you a stronger leg to stand on than trying to convince us that you are the only person told that Tulsi wasn't going to allow an interview. Because all your questions were asked. So it wouldn't even make any sense. Why would that happen? Anna has some questions to answer. Not Tulsi, to be honest with you. Like I said, it'd be nice to get an official statement from the campaign. But in reality, I wouldn't be dedicating any of my time, if I was Tulsi, to try and placate people who actually believe that Anna Kasparian is the one interviewer that scared Tulsi freaking Gabbard. I seriously doubt that. So let me go ahead and finish this. We'll go ahead and get finished.
Not super empowering of women for Tulsi to say, that woman who criticized me, she can't ask me any questions when I'm there, or I'm not participating. So this is not about Anna's perfect, Anna's right. I agree with Anna about some things. I disagree about others. I've known her for many years at this point, and I have a sense of her politics and her MO. This is not about, this is the person.
Can I just say, I don't watch him much, if at all, anymore, but I hate when he does that. I agree with her about some things. I disagree with her about others. Like Pakman specifically. Well, no, it's not just a Pakman thing. This seems to be like a neoliberal light tactic where they try and convince you that the differences between them and legitimate progressives are like minuscule and innocuous. Like, oh, we agree about some things and we disagree about others. Yeah, except for you forget to mention the things we disagree about are like kind of important to the fabrication, to the foundation of progressivism. Like, you forget about those things. The things that you and Anna disagree on are like nil, maybe Israel, and that's it. But like, when you have people like David Pakman or Anna Kasparian or TYT or any of these Sam Cedars of the world and these people, let's be very clear. The disagreements are not civil. These are life and death disagreements. So when he tried to play that game, just understand that's him trying to pretend like, oh, I mean, it may sound like I'm not on your side, but I am on your side. Or it may sound like I'm only taking her side because she's my friend, but I'm not. We disagree. Like, no, it's him trying to pretend to be an objective devil's advocate when it is not the case. It is not the case.
whose politics I'm 100% in line with, although we have a lot of points of agreement. This is about unfair smears that are examples of when the left starts to eat itself and the toxic cult of personality that exists around Tulsi Gabbard. Now, I'm sure that if the Tulsi campaign were to give a statement about this, and maybe they will, I don't know, my guess is they would say, oh, well, you know, there were time constraints and Tulsi knows Cenk and they have a history already, so we felt it would be better for a one-on-one interview. It wasn't anything against Anna. We just felt that it would be an interview best handled as a one-on-one. Whatever. This is lame. The toxic and...
Bruh, really? Oh, if the campaign gave an official statement, it would be talking about, I don't know, there were time constraints and we have other things to deal with while we're in Los Angeles for our California leg of the most important primary of the election. That would be the obvious excuse. But that's stupid. That's lame. That probably isn't what happened. Really? What? How are you going to sit here and pretend like that's not a legitimate reason to not give two separate interviews? I'm confused. What the hell kind of logic? You telling me you're going to defend Anna? Because he said the smear. So first of all, he said the smears of Anna are unfair. For nobody smeared Anna. If anybody wants to go back to my videos and point out where I said a lie about Anna, if I distorted truths that Anna put out there, please tell me I'm wrong. Tell me how I smeared her. Nobody smeared Anna. There might be people in the comment sections, whatever, they do what they do. Obi Alfred, I made a rant roasting Pakman to smithereens on Yellow Vest America YouTube account. Nice, people, go check that out. But with Pakman, for him to sit here with a straight face and be like, the smears against Anna were unfair, and then he immediately proceeds, because this is what I said he was trying to do in the beginning, to attack Tulsi's supporters. Now, for a long time, people, for 2.5 years now, I've been saying that stop with all the claims that they're progressive infighting. The truth of the matter is there are some people who are not really progressives. Just like in the civil rights movement, the John R. Lewis's of the world, they always manage to find themselves in front of a camera until they get to the position of power and notoriety that they would like to be in. Just because they were in front of the camera during the civil rights movement, and they always seem to manage to find themselves there, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were magnanimous and objective and altruistic in their pursuit of equity for black people. So it's the same thing when it comes to the progressive movement. The truth of the matter is the Bernie movement itself has become an economy in and of itself. Like it is. The Pakmans of the world, even TYT, benefited to the tune of almost 2 million subscribers because of Bernie Sanders and his revolution. Anybody, I mean, on either side of that fence, there's been people who have, even the pro-Trump channels, many of the newest ones were Bernie sycophants who left and wanted somebody else to attach themselves to. This Russiagate is the same. This Russiagate nonsense is the same thing. But what have we seen from the Hillary, from these people, right? The ones that voted for Hillary and demanded you do the same, and then say that anyone else who tells the truth about neoliberal lights is splitting the left and causing infighting on the left. These are gaslights. And this is the same gaslighting we saw from the Hillary people. You guessed it. It's no coincidence that the same ones who were screaming at you to vote for Hillary are the same ones who screamed at you for voting for Jill Stein and smeared Jill Stein. Are the same ones who say Elizabeth Warren is their second pick to Bernie Sanders, de facto claiming that somehow Tulsi is more progressive, or excuse me, is less progressive than freaking Elizabeth Warren. Really? The same ones who quote neoliberal smears, quoted the neoliberal smears, I should say, of Jill Stein, quote the neoliberal smears against Bernie, and quote the neoliberal propaganda that perpetuates things like Venezuela, Russiagate, Syria, etc., etc., etc. Those same ones that shame you every step of the way for not being a neoliberal like them are the same ones who don't like Tulsi Gabbard and quote those same smears coming out of neoliberal publications. Isn't that just a coincidence? You know what? They also don't agree. David Pakman, Anna Kasparian, they also don't agree with Tulsi on Syria. They also don't agree with her on Venezuela. David specifically doesn't agree with Tulsi on the Israel-Palestine conflict because Tulsi doesn't agree with occupation and wants Palestine to be recognized as an official state. What a coincidence. David clearly doesn't care about her election justice legislation either, or her fight to stop arming terrorism. Interesting. So the same ones who use mainstream narratives to justify all of their other nonsensical conspiratorial claims, those same ones are also the same ones who don't like Tulsi Gabbard. And not only do they not like Tulsi Gabbard, but then they attack her supporters. And, you know, if you're David Pakman, try to liken those supporters to Trump supporters. Interesting. Like, Anna wants to talk about she won't be silenced. She wore that dumbass shirt. I will not be silenced. Anna, you could have debated me. You could have got all the FaceTime in your home, in your dojo. Remember, you said that I only supported Tulsi because Tulsi said some nice things about me. But here's the difference between Anna Kasparian or David Pakman and myself. The difference is I know when smears are coming out, because if anybody has been following this channel since 2016, 2017 even, I've critiqued Tulsi. Whenever I like a candidate, if I like a politician, I'm digging deep to figure out how they gonna break my heart and piss me off, because I need to figure out what I don't like about anybody before I decide whether or not I'll support them. But this is the difference between myself and those who developed a cult of personality, like a David Pakman and an Anna Kasparian. Those who the cult of personality that they reflect is the cult of the personality of the status quo. Those who have benefited from the status quo, those who have thrived in the status quo, and then they've thrived as their families and their friends and the people around them have benefited from the status quo. That's the cult that they belong to. Not belong to the cult of facts and logic. And because of that, that's how I already knew what they were going to say about Tulsi in the very beginning, which is why I was able to bring out so many videos so quickly before damn near anyone else could. Because me and my team, when we figure out, when we think we like somebody, we do research to figure out every reason we should not like them. And when you do objective research like that, there was really only one conclusion that we didn't even really want to admit at first, which is that Tulsi is objectively the most progressive candidate in the race. That's why they don't want her. Tulsi is the only candidate who's more than willing to stand up to both the Democratic and Republican establishment. That's why they don't like her. Tulsi can't be bullied. Tulsi can't be pushed around. And Tulsi is going to go to the source for the facts rather than allowing neoliberals like David Pakman to determine how she should feel about anything, foreign or domestic. Because she refuses to answer and back down to these corrupt generals and these defense contractors. Because she will not allow the David Pakmans of the world to continue and persist in pushing the Venezuela coup narrative, pushing the Syrian narrative, or if you're David Pakman, shilling for AIPAC. All that stuff is out the window with the Tulsi Gabbard presidency. And all of a sudden, people like the David Pakmans of the world will have to pick a side. But picking a side in this particular case isn't like the Democrats and Republicans. Picking a side means that you're going to have to then admit you were on the wrong side of history that entire time. That's what that means. It exposes the logic and the intentions behind their previous decisions. And then everything they've done will be called into question. Everything they've advocated for will be called into question. People will begin to see the patterns of lies and smears and the tweaking that you all have done of stories to benefit whatever narrative that got you all the most views on your channel. The truth is becoming more and more exposed every day. And the truth of the matter is, when Tulsi gets on the debate stage, which she will, she's less than 4,000 donations away, by the way. When she gets on that debate stage, this election is going to be flipped on its head. Just like, I mean, since we're making comparisons to Trump, just like whenever they thought Trump had a 2% chance of winning, and then he hit that debate stage and said things that were so off kilter, said things that were so just outlandish, things that were considered things that people considered him being outside of the establishment for even mentioning. Then he garnered a lot of support. People forget those rallies. They came after the debate stage. That sycophancy level of support for Trump, that came after the debate stage. It wasn't beforehand. People are pretending like they don't know what I know about this. They know this. The people who have put all their eggs in one basket know this. That is why they are trying their hardest to get the smears out now, because if you don't get the smears out now, it's going to be too late. And Tulsi's already going to be at the top of that mountain. Once again, this is something that they should be welcoming if they were progressives, because Bernie is supportive of Tulsi and vice versa. Bernie knows that neither of them win unless they are both in the race the entire time. Neither of them win. Neither of them get to Trump unless both of them are in this race the entire time. Understand that. But once again, here we are. What are we going to do about this? The lies. What are we going to do about the inconsistencies? Like, I don't want David Pakman coming to save me. The moment that David Pakman comes in for the rescue, you might want to reconsider what side of history you're on. Because I'm not trying to be on the side of history, especially as of lately, consistently with David Pakman, ever. I don't ever want to consistently be on the same side of history as David Pakman. And that's where Anna Kasparian is at right now. And David has been known and exposed as a liar. Michael Tracy exposed him earlier today. And for David Pakman, Cenk, and Anna Kasparian, who have literally, by the way, been spending the last week or so trying to convince the world that, oh no, we were right about Russiagate the entire time. We never said any of that stuff that y'all are saying we said, and it's actually in writing and on video that we said all this stuff about the Russiagate conspiracy. What? I never said any of that stuff. They're literally lying to you about stuff that we can verify is true about them in concerning Russiagate. So you think that we're supposed to believe Anna when none of the facts or evidence or logic or even the personal information that I know points in the direction of her telling the truth? No. God, no. So with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like I said, I know these videos can seem a little bit harsh, but hey, I'm on the side of being on the right side of history. I could give two damns about these progressive alliances and all that good stuff. I'm aligned with the people. I'm aligned with activism and activists. I'm aligned with people on the ground. I'm not here for these people who are on YouTube to make a little bit of cash. We're here for change and not a maintenance of the status quo, because that's what these people are here for. We're for the truth and nothing but the truth. With that being said, people, make sure you go donate to Tulsi Gabbard's campaign, Tulsi2020.com right now. 4,000 unique donations away from being on that debate stage. She got over, 15,000 this weekend, I want to say it was. Don't quote me on that. Yeah. She got 15,000 this weekend, at least, over the last week or so. So she's only 4,000 away. Isn't that crazy? When we first started pushing hard for her candidacy, she was less than 20,000, and that was a week and a half ago. And now she's at 4,000 away from being on that debate stage and changing the entire conversation. And that is what they are afraid of. Because all of a sudden, you got to be on the team of progressives, not the mainstream. And if you do that, well, then you might expose all the other lies that you told from the mainstream. including Syria, including Venezuela, including Russiagate. And I can't wait for that to happen. So with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning in to this live stream segment of Mikasa and Sukasa. And hey, people, remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.